How's it going, guys? Sold Out here, bringing you a live Banlist reaction. Spoilers. I have seen these cards. I kind of knew about these cards. Not all of them, but most of them for a while now. So let's just get right into it and see what they are and give some thoughts about what I think these are going to do to the metagame in for Lille and Atlanta. First up is Called Shot. I mean, everyone kind of knew this card was going. The amount of draw that this card gives pretty much any deck that wants to play it is just insane. It was played in Miracle. It was played in Aurora, like Aurora variants that were playing purple. Just maxed out on this, able to find Aurora really consistently. That was kind of like the minor usage of it. Like obviously, the more kind of egregious portion was just purple seals, called shot, purple Ezreal, scrap heap, draw my whole deck. That deck was really unfun to play against, really unhealthy for the game, in my opinion. And I am very glad that called shot has been, shot, so to speak, right? Next, I guess we'll talk about scrap heap here. They also hit scrap heap. Um, Probably not necessary, but probably was going to get hit at some point. I mean, this card just generates you advantage for doing nothing, basically. For what you turn what would be a cost into a bonus, and that's really, really strong. For 0 energy, mind you. You don't have to spend any resources to play this card, and that is very, very powerful. I mean, of course, I'm going to bring up Annie. This is technically a hit to Annie, and not directly. I don't think. I don't think they were like targeting Annie. It's just the overlap is just there. That's just how good this card is. That every deck that could play it was playing it, and that's maybe a problem in of itself, right? They also hit the obelisk of power, which kind of also ties into that kind of miracle package of getting those extra runes to be able to get through your deck more consistently on an earlier turn. The other deck I see hit on this is mid-range Draven, which I'm really, really glad was addressed with bans. They didn't take the route I thought they were going to take. Well, no, let me rephrase that. They took the route I thought they were going to take. They did not take the route I wanted them to take. I would have liked to see the Draven Legend just straight up banned. I don't think that guy is very fun to play with or against, mostly against, right? And I think that him being in the game and allows there to be this sort of unfun play style of where like everyone's trying to avoid combat, which I don't really want to play that kind of Riftbound. That being said, I think that banning the Draven Vanquisher Chosen Champion does significantly diminish that deck's power level. A big part of the mid-range Draven deck was, playing this guy on 2 and just having the super consistent, extremely powerful turn 2 play that basically just walled every other deck out of the format. And then you combine that with these other hits, like hitting Obelisk is an indirect hit to mid-range Draven. Now he can't like go second and then like play Draven on turn 1, which is really, really big. And Reaver's Row, which was his go first field, banning that is incredible. Thank goodness they banned Reaver's Row. That card was abysmal to play against. If Draven went first and went like Treasure Hunter, goaded Reaver's Row, play Draven in base, that was pretty much just unbeatable. Extremely unfun to play against, super uninteractive. Like there's not really a great way to kind of deal with those units presented to you, unless you open like Piercing Light exactly, right? But Piercing Light's awkward because it's not really that great into other decks. All in all, I am very happy to see these hits aimed at mid-range Draven. I think it's going to bring him in line with the other decks in the format, especially when you combine it with the hit to Fight or Flight. I think Fight or Flight was a card kind of on the edge for a while. It's always been like a little too good for what it is. It removes a unit's combat potential for a whole turn cycle, effectively, right? It can't be on a battlefield. It means it can't attack. It can't defend. And then on top of that, it was a hidden card, so you could flex it even if you had no energy open. And then on top of that, it didn't cost any power, right? So effectively a rebuke that didn't cost power. And that just made it super low commitment to hold open, right? With rebuke, if you want to rebuke my guy, which is extremely powerful, you have to spend, recycle 2 runes. And that's sort of a commitment that you're spending to play the spell when Fight or Flight had no such thing. Extremely broken, very powerful card. Pretty much every purple deck was maxing out on this. Extremely powerful in mid range. I think this is a hit to purple in general, just trying to make purple less powerful. But I think it's also a hit targeted at Draven, as this card is most powerful in mid-range Draven when it was drawing you a card every single time you casted it. So very happy to see that gone. Thank God Reaver's Row is gone. Reaver's Row was never ever fun. No one ever sat down across Reaver's Row and was like, oh my gosh, Reaver's Row. Although I will say this means that we'll no longer get Situation X. If you know, you know. Knower's no. If you're a knower, type in chat. Do you know Situation X? And then the last one to talk about here is the Dreaming Tree. I mean, what is there to say? Indirect nerf to Annie. Obviously I'm going to mention that. This was one of Annie's best fields, but it was also the best field in pretty much every single deck that wanted to play it. If you were playing green, you were playing tree. If you were playing in orange, could play it. Draw off punch. You could play it in like Fiora. You could play it in every single deck. You could literally play it in every single deck. It is a very powerful field, and it's very polarizing. Sometimes you just wouldn't draw your cards that trigger it, and your opponent would draw all of theirs, and they would just drown you in card advantage. Very strong battlefield that, despite losing a field from Annie, I think probably deserved to be banned. I mean, this card is very, very powerful. And that's it. That's all the cards. Just a 7. A lot of people think this is a lot of cards, and maybe it is. There are a few cards not on here. I would have liked to see Aurora, Stella Corn Hunter, Bryn here, that I think are going to cause issues. Like, quite frankly, I don't think Bryn here Thundersong makes it to the end of the year. This card, especially if you've been following the Unleashed reveals. I did like one reveals video, but I just kind of decided I didn't really like doing that kind of content. I was just like, none of the opinions I had on these cards had any sort of context. So I'm like, what's even the point of making this? I digress. If you're followed the reveals, you know that Bryn here is getting multiple ways to play him on the opponent's turn, and that is really unfun. It becomes basically, if you're playing red, your whole game plan becomes, how can I summon Bryn here on my opponent's turn to lock them out of playing cards? That isn't a style of gameplay that I'm particularly fond. I think most people would be like, I want my turn to be able to play cards, right? And I have a hard time believing that that's what Riftbound wants to be, is I'm just going to floodgate my opponent out of the game, right? So I do think that, they were being a little cautious, being like a little optimistic, maybe Bryn here won't be a problem, which is fine. Maybe they don't want to, maybe they want to stray away from preemptively hitting cards. Bryn here isn't a problem right now, so we're going to just deal with it when it does become a problem, which is fair. That's totally understandable, right? So Bryn here aside, I would have liked to see Aurora. Aurora, the same thing. It's not super much of a problem right now, even though it does create a bunch of like really unfun games. Like, how often do you sit across from Aurora and like they have it on turn 3 and you just die into the sun and there's nothing you can do about it? Or like maybe the Aurora player just never finds it and you just win because they never found it, right? Those are two situations that are just not really fun to be in for either player. And I feel like, with these ban lists, we could be trying to minimize the number of like unfun games that happen, even if the cards aren't necessarily too powerful. And then I think I mentioned Stella Corn Hunter. This card was like, whatever, like probably didn't need to be hit. It's just like one of those cards that is extremely polarizing. If you have it on curve and like the opponent doesn't have immediate way to answer it, the player that played the Stella Corn probably just wins. Especially in decks that have access to like movement tools like Aurelia, they just draw like 2+ cards a turn. It's very difficult to win when your opponent is like accumulating that much advantage, right? So would have liked to see Stella Corn gone, Aurora gone, Bryn here gone, but c'est la vie. They're still in the game. We're gonna have to find a way to deal with it. That being said, new content out soon. I have a video series I am working on that should be out next couple days. update to Annie guide coming soon with these new bans. I can finally kind of figure out where Annie should be in set 2. So I'll have an update to the Annie guide in a couple days. So watch out for new videos. Watch out for Annie guide update. Um, See you in the next one. Peace.